Saucier, this is a video lesson on operations. Operations are the actions we take with numbers. And we'll start our notes with the word operations. If numbers are the objects of mathematics, operations are the actions we take with those objects. And operations are verbs. A ball is a noun, and if we throw a ball, the throwing is the action or the verb that we do to the ball. The operations that we do with numbers is we add, subtract, multiply, and divide. And later on in other higher mathematics, we can think of other operations. But the four fundamental operations have symbols, and these symbols, the first is a symbol that means add, the action of combining the numbers. The symbol is subtract. This symbol is a dot that we're going to use for multiply. And typically in arithmetic, the symbol X is used for multiplication, but since we're going to be getting into algebra, where the X is used to designate a variable, we're going to start by using a dot for multiplication so it's not confused in algebra with an X. The symbol is for division, and the action is to divide. So when we have a problem in which we've added numbers together, what's produced by addition is called a sum. When we have two numbers that we subtract, what we produce by subtraction is called a difference. When we have two numbers that we multiply, what is produced by multiplication is called a product. And when we divide, what is produced is called a quotient. For example, we can add 6 and 2, and it will be equal to the sum 8. We can take the difference of 6 and 2 and produce the difference 4. We can multiply 6 and 2 to produce the product 12. And we can divide 6 and 2 to get the quotient 3. In addition and multiplication, the order that we add and multiply by does not matter. But in subtraction and division, it does matter what number comes first or what number is on top or bottom. We have a way of remembering the order in which we take these actions, in which we do these operations. If there's more than one operation in a math problem, we need to know which one we do first in order to produce the answer that everybody else that did the problem would get. For example, if we had the math expression 4 minus 3 plus 10, there would be different answers produced if we subtracted first. 4 minus 3 is 1, and then added 10 to get 11. then if we did the problem by adding first, the 3 and the 10 to get 13, so this became 4 minus 13, or an entirely different number, in this case, a negative 9. Which is the correct way to proceed with this problem? There's one answer that's considered correct because it would be the answer that everybody else in the world would be expected to get. And we follow this mnemonic GEMDOS to remind us of that order, where G stands for grouping symbols. Grouping symbols can come in the form of various parentheses, like a typical parenthesis, or square brackets, French braces or squiggly parentheses. Grouping symbols could also be what we'll later review or learn are the absolute value bars, and the division bar is also a grouping symbol. We do grouping symbols first. We look to see if our problem has grouping symbols and resolve what's inside first. Then we move on to exponents. Exponents are powers, repeated multiplication. And then we get to our 4 fundamental operations: multiply and divide, before adding and subtracting. Now, even though M comes before D, we don't really multiply before we divide. These are two sides of the same coin. We're going to learn to think of them as inverses of each other. We really do multiplication and division at the same time. But just like we would read a book, we do them at the same time from left to right. Addition and subtraction are also done at the same time as we read a book from left to right. So what did we do in this case? We see that we have subtraction and addition. There are no grouping symbols, exponents, multiplication, or division. So we know that we need to add and subtract at the same time from left to right, which means as we read a book, this would be 4 minus 3 would be the first thing because it's to the left as we read the problem than the addition symbol. So we need to subtract first. That means that the problem where we took 3 away from 4 and got the 1 is the correct way to go, and not to skip the subtraction and do the division first. Let's have another example. 3 plus 4 times 5. In the order of operations, I see addition and multiplication. In the order of operations, I know I need to multiply before I add. So I'm going to multiply the 4 and the 5 to get 20. The 3 plus is still there, and we can get a final answer of 23. Now, if I wanted to write a problem in which I wanted to add before multiplying, then I would use grouping symbols in order to force that addition to take place first. Because when we look at this problem, we see the grouping symbols, and we know that we need to resolve that first, which forces us to add the 3 and the 4 to make 7 before multiplying by 5 and getting an entirely different answer than before.